The red warning lights flashed across the command center of the Catherian Empire as Admiral Zektar studied the holographic display before him. The data streaming in from their scout ships painted a picture that disturbed him more with each passing moment. On the screen, a small blue planet called Earth rotated slowly, showing cities that glowed with electric light and metal structures that reached toward the stars. Commander Velnash approached the Admiral with another data pad in her clawed hands. She had been monitoring human progress for the past 50 rotations, and her reports grew more alarming each time. The humans had achieved something that should have been impossible according to every model the Catherian scientists had created. "Admiral, the latest intelligence confirms our worst fears," Velnash said, her voice carrying the weight of concern. "These humans have advanced from primitive steam engines to fusion reactors in less than 200 of their years. Our own empire took over 3,000 years to make the same technological leap." Zektar touched the holographic controls, zooming in on various human settlements. He could see massive industrial complexes, space stations orbiting their planet, and most concerning of all, what appeared to be weapons testing facilities. The humans were not just advancing quickly in peaceful technology, they were also developing their military capabilities at an unprecedented rate. "Show me their space program progress," the Admiral commanded. The display shifted to show human spacecraft. Most were still primitive by Catherian standards, but the rate of improvement was staggering. In just 60 of their years, humans had gone from crude chemical rockets to sophisticated vessels capable of traveling between their planet and its moon. Recent intelligence suggested they were on the verge of developing faster-than-light travel. "How? Many of their kind exist?" Zektar asked. "Approximately 8 billion individuals, Admiral. They reproduce at a rate that would strain most planetary resources, yet they continue to expand and adapt. Their population has grown exponentially while their technology has advanced. Most species slow their reproduction as they become more advanced, but humans appear to do the opposite." Zektar felt his scaled skin grow cold. 8 billion individuals, all apparently driven by the same aggressive expansion instincts that had brought them from primitive tool users to space travelers in such a short time. He had seen the historical records of other species the Catherian Empire had encountered, and none had shown such rapid development combined with such large numbers. "What does our psychological analysis tell us about their nature?" the Admiral inquired. Velnash activated another section of the display, showing recordings of human conflicts throughout their history. "They are constantly at war with each other, Admiral. Not the ritual combat or honor duels that civilized species engage in, but total warfare involving entire populations. They have developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet. Yet they continue to build more powerful ones." The recordings showed human battles across different time periods. Zektar watched as primitive humans fought with metal weapons. Then more advanced humans used explosive devices. Then even more recent conflicts where humans employed technology that could level entire cities. What disturbed him most was that they never seemed to learn restraint from these conflicts. Instead, each war seemed to drive them to develop even more effective ways of fighting. "Do they show any signs of developing peaceful governance as they advance?" Zektar asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "No, Admiral. If anything, their conflicts have become more organized and efficient. They have multiple nations that compete with each other for resources and territory. Some of our analysts believe this constant competition is what drives their rapid technological advancement. They innovate because they must, or their rivals will gain an advantage." Zektar turned away from the display and walked to the large window overlooking the Catherian home fleet. Hundreds of ships floated in perfect formation, representing the combined military might of 12 different species that had joined the Catherian Empire over the centuries. Each species had been given the choice to join peacefully or be conquered, and most had chosen peace once they saw the overwhelming force arrayed against them. But humans appeared to be different. Their rapid advancement suggested that within 50 rotations, they might possess technology that could challenge even the Catherian Empire. Their aggressive nature and large population meant they would likely use that technology for expansion and conquest rather than peaceful development. "Summon the War Council," Admiral Zektar commanded. "It is time to make a decision about the human problem." Within hours, representatives from all 12 member species of the Catherian Empire gathered in the Great Council Chamber. Each species brought their own perspective and expertise, but all had reviewed the same disturbing intelligence about human development. The debate lasted for 3 full rotations. Some council members argued for immediate diplomatic contact, suggesting that humans might be willing to accept guidance and limitations on their development in exchange for advanced technology and peaceful trade. Others advocated for a blockade of the human system, preventing them from expanding beyond their home planet until they could prove they were not a threat. But Admiral Zektar presented the case for decisive action. He showed the Council projections of human development if left unchecked. Within 50 rotations, humans would likely possess faster-than-light travel, advanced weapons, and the population to support massive military forces. Their history of constant warfare suggested they would use these capabilities to expand aggressively into space, potentially threatening every established civilization in the galaxy. "We have 3 choices," Zektar told the assembled council. "We can attempt diplomacy with a species that has never known true peace among their own kind. We can try to contain them and hope they accept limitations on their expansion. Or we can act now, while we still possess overwhelming superiority, and ensure they never become a threat to galactic stability." The vote was close, but the majority agreed with Admiral Zektar's assessment. The human threat required immediate action, and that action required the full might of the Catherian Empire. Orders went out across 12 star systems. Every available warship was to report to the rally point at the edge of Catherian space. Supply ships loaded with provisions for an extended campaign. Marine units prepared for possible ground operations. For the first time in the 3,000-year history of the Catherian Empire, they were assembling the Grand Fleet. 2,000 ships of various classes began gathering at the designated coordinates. Battleships capable of destroying entire cities, cruisers designed for long-range patrol and engagement, destroyers built for speed and precision strikes, and massive carrier vessels loaded with fighter craft. Supporting them were hundreds of supply ships, troop transports, and specialized vessels for post-conquest occupation duties. As Admiral Zektar stood on the bridge of his flagship watching the Grand Fleet assemble, he felt confident that they were making the right choice. The humans would be given one opportunity to surrender peacefully and accept Catherian oversight of their development. If they refused, the combined might of 12 advanced civilizations would ensure they never had another chance to threaten galactic peace. The Admiral did not know that at that very moment, on the distant planet Earth, a human captain named Jake Morrison was receiving orders to take humanity's newest deep space vessel on what his commanders called a routine patrol mission to the outer system. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the stars through the main viewport as his ship moved through the outer regions of the Sol system. The mission briefing had been unusually vague, with Earth Command simply ordering him to conduct a patrol of the system's edge and report any unusual activity. Morrison had been in the military long enough to recognize when his superiors were not telling him everything. The Defiance was humanity's pride, the first true deep space vessel capable of extended operations far from Earth. She carried a crew of 200 volunteers, all handpicked for their skills and dedication. Chief Engineer Lisa Park had worked miracles to keep the ship's experimental systems running smoothly during their 6-month shakedown cruise. Tactical Officer Ryan Cole had proven himself during simulated combat scenarios that pushed both ship and crew to their limits. Communications Specialist Amy Foster had maintained contact with Earth Command, even at the extreme range of their current position. "Captain, I'm detecting something unusual on long-range sensors," Ryan Cole reported from his station. His voice carried a tension that immediately got Morrison's attention. "What kind of unusual?" Morrison asked, moving to stand behind Cole's console. "Multiple contacts, sir. Very large contacts. They appeared simultaneously at the edge of sensor range about 20 minutes ago. The computer is having trouble getting an accurate count, but it's showing over 1,000 separate objects." Morrison felt his stomach tighten. No human fleet contained anywhere near that many ships, and no known natural phenomenon would create such readings. "Are you certain these are artificial objects?" "Yes, sir. They're maintaining formation and moving under power toward the inner system. Whatever they are, they're definitely spacecraft." "Amy, open a channel to Earth Command immediately," Morrison ordered. "Priority transmission." Communications Specialist Amy Foster worked at her console for several minutes before looking up with concern. "Sir, I'm not getting any response from Earth Command. All our normal communication frequencies are being jammed by some kind of interference." Morrison realized that their routine patrol had suddenly become something much more serious. "Lisa, how quickly can we get to maximum speed?" Chief Engineer Lisa Park checked her displays before responding. "We can push the engines to full power within 10 minutes, Captain. But at this range, it would take us over 6 hours to reach Earth, assuming these unknown contacts don't intercept us first." "Ryan, what's their current heading and speed?" "They're moving directly toward Earth, sir. At their current rate, they'll reach the inner system in approximately 8 hours. And Captain, I'm getting better resolution on their formations now. These ships are massive, much larger than anything in our fleet." Morrison made a decision that would change human history. Instead of attempting to flee back to Earth with a warning that would arrive too late, he ordered the Defiance to alter course toward the unknown fleet. If these were hostile forces approaching Earth, he needed to learn as much as possible about their capabilities and intentions. As the Defiance moved closer to the alien fleet, the true scale of what they faced became apparent. Ryan Cole's tactical displays showed over 2,000 individual spacecraft arranged in precise military formations. Each ship was several times larger than the Defiance, and some of the vessels were so massive they could have carried the entire human fleet inside their hulls. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," Amy Foster announced. "It's coming through our Universal Translator protocols, which means they're using some kind of standard galactic communication system." "Put it on speakers," Morrison commanded. The voice that filled the bridge was cold and mechanical, speaking in perfect English, despite clearly originating from a non-human source. "Primitive vessel of the species known as humans, you are in the presence of the grand fleet of the Catherian Empire. Your species has been judged a threat to galactic stability and order. You will immediately transmit your surrender and prepare to be boarded for processing." Morrison looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. He saw fear, but he also saw determination. These were people who had volunteered for humanity's most dangerous mission, and they were not the type to surrender without a fight. "Continue transmission," the alien voice said. "Your species will immediately cease all military development and submit to Catherian oversight. Your homeworld will accept occupation forces to ensure compliance with galactic stability requirements. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force. You have one of your time periods called hours to respond with your complete surrender." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the Defiance in silence. Morrison walked to his command chair and sat down, considering his options. He could try to negotiate for more time, attempt to flee back to Earth with a warning, or he could do something that no rational military commander would consider when facing odds of 2,000 to 1. "Amy, open a response channel," Morrison said. "Channel open, sir." Morrison stood up and spoke clearly into the communication system. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Defense Force vessel Defiance. You have entered human space without authorization and threatened our homeworld and our people. I don't know who you are or where you come from, but you have made a serious mistake. You have exactly one chance to withdraw peacefully before we consider you a hostile force." The response came back almost immediately, and Morrison could hear what sounded like multiple alien voices conferring in the background before the same mechanical translator spoke. "Human vessel, our sensors indicate you possess a single primitive spacecraft against our fleet of over 2,000 advanced warships. Explain the reasoning behind your threat." Morrison smiled grimly. "You came here expecting to find a weak species that would surrender at the first sign of superior force. What you found instead is humanity. We don't surrender, we don't back down, and we don't let anyone threaten our home. If you want Earth, you're going to have to go through us to get it." There was a longer pause before the alien response came. "Human Captain, you are either suffering from a mental defect or you possess weapons technology our sensors cannot detect. We will provide you with a demonstration of our capabilities to help you understand your situation." 3 of the massive alien ships broke formation and began moving toward the Defiance. As they approached, Morrison could see that each one was easily 10 times the size of his ship, bristling with weapon systems that human technology could barely comprehend. "Captain, those ships are powering up their weapons," Ryan Cole reported. "They appear to be targeting our engines and communication systems. I think they intend to disable us rather than destroy us." Morrison turned to his crew. "All hands. This is the captain. We are about to engage a superior enemy force in defense of our homeworld. Every person on this ship volunteered to be here, knowing the risks. Today we find out what humans are really made of. All stations, prepare for combat. Chief Engineer Lisa Park immediately began pushing their fusion reactor beyond safe operating parameters. The Defiance had never been designed for combat against capital ships, but Lisa was determined to give her captain every advantage possible. "Captain, I can give you 150% power to weapons and engines, but I can't guarantee how long the systems will hold." Tactical Officer Ryan Cole began plotting attack vectors that would have been considered suicidal in any military academy. "Sir, if we use the asteroid field to our starboard as cover, we might be able to get close enough to do some real damage before they can bring their full firepower to bear." Communications specialist Amy Foster started broadcasting on all frequencies, sending a message that would reach Earth and potentially other human outposts. All stations, this is UES Defiance. We are engaging hostile alien forces at the edge of the Sol system. Unknown fleet of over 2,000 ships approaching Earth. We are proceeding to engage the enemy. As the 3 alien ships close to weapons range, Captain Morrison gave the order that would begin humanity's first interstellar war. "All stations, this is it. Show them what humans do when someone threatens our home. Fire all weapons." The Defiance opened fire on the first alien ship with everything they had. Energy beams and kinetic projectiles streaked across space toward targets that had never faced an enemy quite like humanity. The aliens had expected a primitive species that would fight according to civilized rules of engagement. They were about to learn that humans had never heard of civilized rules when it came to protecting their home. The first alien ship that engaged the Defiance expected a quick and simple boarding action. The Catherian destroyer moved into position with the confidence of a predator approaching wounded prey. But Captain Morrison had other plans for his uninvited guests. "Ryan, target their weapon systems with everything we have," Morrison ordered. "Lisa, I need more power to forward shields." "You've got it, Captain," Lisa Park responded from engineering, her hands flying over the reactor controls. "But I'm already pushing us past red line on reactor output. We can't maintain this for more than an hour before something critical fails." The Defiance unleashed its full arsenal against the Catherian destroyer. Human weapons technology was primitive compared to alien standards, but what the humans lacked in advanced technology, they made up for with sheer aggression and unconventional tactics. Ryan Cole targeted the alien ship's sensor arrays first, blinding it before shifting fire to what appeared to be weapon-mounting points. The Catherian commander of the destroyer was confused by human tactics. In 3,000 years of galactic warfare, civilized species followed established protocols during ship-to-ship combat. Opponents would exchange fire at respectful distances, allow time for surrender negotiations, and avoid targeting non-combat systems unnecessarily. The humans appeared to follow none of these rules. "Captain, the alien ship is trying to match our maneuvers," Ryan reported. "But they're not anticipating our flight pattern. I don't think they're used to opponents who change direction this rapidly." Morrison smiled grimly. "That's because civilized species probably don't fly their ships like atmospheric fighters. Keep us moving, Ryan. Use every asteroid, every piece of debris, anything that can give us cover or an advantage." The Defiance dove into a dense asteroid field, using the rocky debris as both cover and improvised weapons. Ryan Cole calculated trajectories that sent the ship threading between asteroids at speeds that would have terrified any sane pilot. When Catherian weapons fire missed the rapidly maneuvering human ship and struck asteroids instead, the resulting debris clouds provided additional concealment. Chief Engineer Lisa Park monitored her systems with growing alarm and admiration for her own work. The Defiance was performing far beyond its design specifications, held together by engineering skill and the determination of its crew. When a Catherian energy beam penetrated their shields and damaged the port engine, Lisa rerouted power through backup systems and actually managed to increase their acceleration. "Lisa, how are you doing that?" Morrison asked over the ship's communication system. "I'm not entirely sure, Captain," Lisa replied honestly. "I've bypassed about 6 safety systems, and I'm running coolant through lines that were never designed for this kind of load. According to every manual I've ever read, this ship should have shut down 15 minutes ago." The first Catherian destroyer found itself in an increasingly desperate situation. The human ship refused to behave according to any known tactical doctrine. Instead of maintaining distance and trading fire in an orderly fashion, the humans kept closing to point-blank range, firing continuously, and using ramming attacks that no civilized species would consider. When the Defiance lost its forward shield generators, Morrison made a decision that shocked even his own crew. "Ryan, plot a collision course with that destroyer. Amy, evacuate everyone from forward sections." "Sir, are you planning to ram them?" Ryan asked. "Only if they don't get out of our way," Morrison replied. "Amy, broadcast our intentions on all frequencies. Let's see how committed they are to this fight." Amy Foster sent the message in clear language that even the alien translators could understand. "Cytherian vessel, this is UES Defiance. We are on a collision course with your ship. Recommend you alter course immediately or prepare for impact." The Cytherian destroyer commander faced a situation he had never encountered in decades of military service. The human ship was actually accelerating toward a ramming attack, and his sensors confirmed that they had evacuated the forward sections of their vessel. These humans were preparing to sacrifice part of their own ship to damage his. At the last possible moment, the Cytherian destroyer attempted to change course, but the Defiance adjusted its trajectory to maintain the collision vector. The human ship struck the alien destroyer along its port side, crushing through armor plating and penetrating deep into the alien vessel's hull. The impact should have destroyed both ships, but Chief Engineer Lisa Park had prepared for this moment. She had concentrated all remaining shield power to the forward sections and reinforced the Defiance's hull with emergency bulkheads. The human ship survived the ramming attack, while the Cytherian destroyer was left with massive hull breaches and failing power systems. "Damage report," Morrison called out as emergency lights flickered across the bridge. "Forward sections are a total loss, but we're still space-worthy," Lisa reported. "I've sealed off the damaged areas and rerouted life support. We can continue fighting." The second and third Cytherian destroyers moved to engage the Defiance, but their commanders now approached with considerably more caution. They had witnessed human tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare, and they were beginning to understand that they faced an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. Ryan Cole studied the approaching alien ships and made another recommendation that would have been rejected by any conventional military. "Captain, if we jettison our remaining fuel reserves and detonate them at the right moment, we can create a debris field that will force those ships to alter course directly into our weapons range." "Do it!" Morrison ordered without hesitation. The Defiance released its backup fuel supplies and ignited them in a controlled explosion that created a massive cloud of superheated gas and metal fragments. The two approaching Cytherian destroyers found their sensors blinded and their hulls peppered with debris, forcing them to emerge from the cloud in exactly the positions Ryan Cole had predicted. What followed was 40 minutes of the most intense ship-to-ship combat the galaxy had ever witnessed. The Defiance, operating on backup power and held together by determination, engaged two ships that individually outmassed and outgunned it by factors of 10 to 1. But human tactics continued to confuse and frustrate the Cytherian commanders. When their main weapons were damaged, the humans began using their industrial equipment as improvised weapons. Mining lasers designed for asteroid processing became precision-cutting tools that could slice through alien armor. Cargo handling systems were used to launch debris at enemy ships with enough force to damage hull plating. Most disturbing to the Cytherian fleet was the human response to casualties. When the Defiance took hits that killed crew members, the remaining humans did not become demoralized or request surrender negotiations. Instead, they became more aggressive and creative in their attacks. Communications specialist Amy Foster, wounded by debris from a hull breach but still at her station, began broadcasting human military songs and defiant messages across all frequencies. Her transmissions were picked up by Cytherian ships throughout the fleet, spreading word of human resistance and determination. After 2 hours of combat, 2 of the 3 Cytherian destroyers had been destroyed or disabled. The third was retreating toward the main fleet with significant damage and a crew that was thoroughly shaken by their encounter with human warfare. Captain Morrison stood on his damaged bridge, surrounded by smoke and emergency lighting, and opened communications with the Cytherian fleet. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the UES Defiance. Your 3 ships came here to demonstrate your power to us. I hope you paid attention because we just demonstrated ours to you. You have one opportunity to withdraw from human space peacefully. Continue your approach toward Earth, and you'll discover why humanity has never been conquered by anyone." Admiral Zektar, watching the tactical display from his flagship, stared in disbelief at the sensor readings. A single primitive human vessel had destroyed 2 of his advanced destroyers and damaged a 3rd. His fleet still possessed overwhelming numerical superiority, but the humans had just proven that they would not surrender regardless of the odds they faced. The Admiral opened a channel to all ships in his fleet. All vessels, maintain current formation and continue approach to the human homeworld. Prepare for full-scale engagement. It appears these humans require a more convincing demonstration of our superiority. But as 2,000 Catherian ships began their advance toward Earth, Admiral Zektar could not shake the feeling that he was about to learn something about humanity that no amount of intelligence gathering could have prepared him for. The humans had just shown that they could be dangerous when cornered, and now he was about to corner 8 billion of them on their homeworld. As the massive Catherian fleet advanced toward Earth, Captain Morrison gathered his remaining crew on the bridge of the damaged Defiance. Emergency lighting cast long shadows across consoles that sparked and flickered from battle damage. The ship's hull groaned under the stress of maintaining structural integrity with half its forward sections destroyed, but the crew showed no signs of giving up. "Report on our current status," Morrison requested. Chief Engineer Lisa Park consulted, her damage control displays with a mixture of pride and concern. "Captain, we've lost 40% of our hull integrity. Forward weapons are completely gone, and I'm running the reactor at levels that should be physically impossible. The good news is that we're still flying and we still have our main engines." Tactical, Officer Ryan Cole checked his sensor readings and shook his head grimly. "Sir, the alien fleet is advancing in full formation, 2,000 ships moving directly toward Earth. At their current speed, they'll reach the inner system in 6 hours. Communications specialist Amy Foster, her left arm in an improvised sling but still working at her station, looked up from her console. "Captain, I've been monitoring their fleet communications. They're definitely planning a full assault on Earth. No negotiations, no surrender terms, just complete conquest." Morrison walked to the main viewport and stared out at the approaching alien fleet. Even at this distance, he could see the lights from thousands of ships arranged in perfect military formation. It was the largest space fleet in recorded history, assembled by 12 different alien civilizations for the sole purpose of conquering humanity. "Captain," Lisa called from her engineering station, "I've been running calculations on our remaining capabilities. I can overload our main reactor to create an electromagnetic pulse that would disable every ship within 50 kilometers. It would destroy the Defiance, but we could take out maybe 30 or 40 of their vessels." Ryan Cole looked up from his tactical console with another suggestion that bordered on the suicidal. "Sir, I've identified what appears to be their command ship based on fleet positioning and communication patterns. If we could get close enough for a ramming attack, we might be able to disrupt their entire command structure." Morrison considered both options while looking at the faces of his crew. These people had already fought beyond any reasonable expectation, had survived combat against impossible odds, and were now calmly discussing ways to sacrifice their lives to inflict maximum damage on an enemy that outnumbered them 2,000 to 1. "Amy, have you been able to get any word through to Earth Command?" Morrison asked. "Negative, sir. The aliens are jamming all our normal communication frequencies, but I have been broadcasting on emergency channels hoping someone might pick up our signals." Morrison was about to respond when Amy's console suddenly came alive with an incoming transmission. She worked frantically to clear the signal before looking up with the first smile anyone had seen on the bridge in hours. "Captain, I'm receiving a priority message from Earth Command. The signal is coming through quantum tunneling communication. Put it through," Morrison ordered. A voice crackled over the ship's speakers, distorted by the experimental communication technology but clearly human. "UES Defiance, this is Admiral Sarah Blake, Earth Defense Command. Jake, I hope you're still out there because cavalry is en route." Morrison felt his heart race as he grabbed the communication microphone. "Sarah, this is Jake Morrison. We're still here, but barely. We've got 2,000 alien ships heading straight for Earth with hostile intentions. We know, Jake. We've been tracking the situation since your first transmission. The reason we sent you on that patrol mission was because our intelligence services detected the alien buildup 3 weeks ago. The Defiance wasn't meant to fight their entire fleet. You were meant to buy us time." Morrison looked around his bridge at crew members who were suddenly standing straighter despite their injuries and exhaustion. "Time for what, Sarah?" "Time for us to deploy the ships we've been building in secret for the past 5 years. Jake, You're about to get some company out there. The space around the Defiance suddenly filled with the distinctive blue flashes of human quantum tunnel drives. One by one, ships began appearing throughout the outer system. These were not the experimental vessels that Earth had openly acknowledged, but sleek warships built in hidden shipyards, using technology that humanity had developed in absolute secrecy. 12. Ships materialized in formation around the damaged Defiance. Each one was larger and more heavily armed than anything in the publicly known human fleet. These were the results of humanity's black-budget military programs, vessels designed specifically for combat against unknown alien threats. "Jake, this is Captain Sue Blake aboard the UES Retribution," came another voice over the communication system. "Sorry we're late to the party. Hope you saved some for us." Morrison found himself laughing despite the desperate situation. "Sue, there are 2,000 of them and 13 of us. I think there's plenty to go around." The human ships that had just arrived were marvels of military engineering that incorporated lessons learned from decades of theoretical alien contact scenarios. They carried weapons systems based on captured alien technology from previous covert encounters, armor designed to withstand energy weapons that Earth science had only recently learned to understand, and most importantly, they were crewed by people who had trained their entire careers for exactly this situation. Captain Sue Blake opened a fleet communication channel that connected all 13 human ships. "All vessels, this is Fleet Command. We are facing an enemy force that outnumbers us approximately 150 to 1. They came here expecting to find a primitive species that would surrender at the first sign of superior force. Instead, they found humanity, and Captain Morrison has already shown them what that means." She paused before continuing. "Our mission is simple. We protect Earth. We protect our people. And we show these aliens that threatening humanity was the worst mistake they could have made. All ships, battle stations." The 13 human ships arranged themselves in a defensive formation as the Catherian fleet approached. Admiral Zektar, observing from his flagship, was disturbed by this new development, but still confident in his overwhelming numerical advantage. 12 additional primitive ships could not significantly alter the outcome of this engagement. But as the two fleets closed to combat range, Admiral Zektar began to realize that these new human ships were different from the damaged vessel that had already destroyed 2 of his destroyers. These ships moved with precision and coordination that suggested advanced training and battlefield experience. Their weapons signatures indicated technology that was more sophisticated than intelligence reports had suggested possible. The battle began when the human fleet opened fire at maximum range with weapons that the Catherian sensors had not detected during their reconnaissance missions. Directed energy beams and kinetic projectiles streaked across space toward alien targets with accuracy that surprised the Catherian fleet commanders. Captain Morrison, watching from the bridge of the Defiance as more advanced human ships engaged. The enemy realized that his desperate last stand had become something entirely different. Earth had not sent him out to die heroically against impossible odds. They had sent him to be the bait that would draw the alien fleet into a carefully planned trap. "Lisa, can we still contribute to this fight?" Morrison asked his chief engineer. "Captain, we may not have forward weapons, but we still have engines, and we still have a reactor that's running hot enough to power a small city. If you can get us close enough to their command ship, I can give you an explosion that will make our earlier ramming attack look like a love tap." Morrison looked out at the space battle developing around them, with human ships engaging alien vessels in combat that would determine the fate of Earth, and possibly the entire galaxy. 13 ships against 2,000, with the survival of humanity hanging in the balance. "All right then," Morrison said, settling into his command chair. "Let's go finish what we started." The battle that followed became known throughout the galaxy as the Soul Engagement, though most civilizations would not learn the full details until years later. 13 human ships faced 2,000 alien vessels in a conflict that defied every mathematical model of space warfare ever created. The human ships moved through the Catherian formations like wolves among sheep, using tactics that no civilized species had ever conceived. They coordinated their attacks with precision timing, concentrated fire on single targets until they were destroyed, then moved to the next target before the aliens could organize an effective response. Captain Sue Blake aboard the UES Retribution led the human fleet in a series of hit-and-run attacks that used the asteroid belt and debris fields for cover. Her ships would appear suddenly, destroy several alien vessels, then disappear back into the rocks before the Catherians could bring their overwhelming numbers to bear. Admiral Zektar found himself fighting an enemy that refused to follow any known rules of engagement. Human ships would sacrifice themselves to protect damaged vessels, ram enemy ships when their weapons failed, and continue fighting even when their hulls were breached and their crews were dying. Most disturbing to the Catherian commander was the human response to casualties. Every time an alien weapon destroyed a human ship, the remaining vessels became more aggressive rather than more cautious. The humans seemed to take personal offense at the loss of their comrades, and they responded with increasingly creative and devastating attacks. Captain Morrison, aboard the crippled Defiance, had become separated from the main human fleet during the opening phases of the battle. But instead of retreating to safety, he had continued his original mission to reach the Catherian command ship. Chief Engineer Lisa Park had turned their damaged vessel into a guided missile with a nuclear reactor as its warhead. "Captain, I'm reading massive power fluctuations from the alien command ship," Ryan Cole reported from his tactical station. "I think their shields are failing under concentrated fire from our fleet." Morrison saw his opportunity. The battle had raged for 18 hours, and both sides had taken heavy casualties. 5 human ships had been destroyed, but they had taken over 300 alien vessels with them. The odds were still impossible, but humanity had already proven that impossible was just another word for difficult. "Lisa, how much power can you give me for one final run at their flagship?" Morrison asked. "Captain, I can overload every system we have left. The reactor explosion will probably crack that ship in half, but we'll have to get close enough to make it count. Real close." Morrison opened a communication channel to the human fleet. "All ships, this is Jake Morrison aboard the Defiance. We're making a final run at the alien command ship. Cover our approach for as long as you can." Captain Sue Blake responded immediately. "Jake, you crazy bastard. We'll keep them busy. Make it count." The Defiance, held together by determination and engineering miracles, began its final approach toward Admiral Zektar's flagship. The massive alien vessel was the size of a small city, bristling with weapons and protected by shields that could deflect the firepower of entire fleets. But the human ships had been concentrating their fire on the Catherian flagship for hours, and those shields were beginning to fail. Energy beams from human vessels carved through alien armor while kinetic projectiles punched holes in the massive ship's hull. As the Defiance closed to ramming distance, something unexpected happened. The Catherian flagship's main hangar bay opened, and a small shuttlecraft emerged flying a white flag of truce. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from that shuttle," Amy Foster reported. "It's Admiral Zektar himself requesting permission to come aboard." Morrison was stunned. In the middle of the largest space battle in galactic history, the enemy commander wanted to talk. "Tell him he has 5 minutes before we complete our attack run." The Catherian shuttle docked with the Defiance, and Admiral Zektar stepped aboard the human ship accompanied by 2 guards. The alien commander was tall and reptilian, with scales that reflected the emergency lighting of the damaged human vessel. But what struck Morrison most was the expression in the Admiral's eyes. It was not anger or hatred, but something that looked almost like respect. "Captain Morrison," Admiral Zektar said through his universal translator, "I have come to offer terms for the cessation of hostilities." Morrison, his uniform torn and his face blackened by smoke from 18 hours of combat, looked at the alien admiral with undisguised suspicion. "The terms are simple, Admiral. Withdraw your fleet from human space and never come back." "Captain, you must understand the position we find ourselves in. Your species was judged a threat to galactic stability based on your rapid technological advancement and aggressive expansion patterns. We came here to prevent a future war by ending the threat before it could develop." Morrison laughed bitterly. "And instead you started a war with a species that doesn't know how to quit. How's that working out for you, Admiral?" Zektar looked around the damaged bridge of the Defiance, noting the human crew members who continued working at their stations, despite injuries and exhaustion. "Captain, in 3,000 years of galactic warfare, I have never encountered a Bache species that fights as your people do. You attack when you should retreat. You sacrifice your lives to protect others, and you become more dangerous when you are wounded rather than less." That's what happens when you threaten our home, Morrison replied. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years, Admiral. We know how to fight, and we know how to win. The Admiral was quiet for a moment before speaking again. Captain, I have a question that will determine whether this war continues or ends. Your species fights like cornered predators, with an intensity that defies rational analysis. How can any civilization coexist peacefully with such aggressive tendencies? Morrison considered the question carefully before answering. The same way we coexist with each other, Admiral. We choose to be friends instead of enemies. The intensity doesn't go away, we just point it at problems instead of people. You want to see human aggression channeled constructively? Give us a challenge that's worth our effort. Explore unknown space with us, fight threats that endanger everyone, build something that benefits the entire galaxy. Admiral Zektar studied Captain Morrison for a long moment, then made a decision that would reshape galactic politics for centuries to come. Captain, I am prepared to order the withdrawal of all Cytherian forces from human space and the establishment of formal diplomatic relations between our peoples. What's the catch? Morrison asked suspiciously. No catch, Captain. But I would like to make a request. Your species has proven that it possesses capabilities that could benefit the entire galactic community. There are threats in unexplored space that have defeated every expedition we have sent against them. Would humanity be interested in joining a joint exploration mission to investigate these unknown dangers? Morrison smiled for the first time in 24 hours. Admiral, you just offered humanity exactly what we've wanted since we first looked up at the stars. A challenge worthy of our efforts and friends to share it with. The Sol engagement ended not with the destruction of either fleet, but with the signing of the Terran Cytherian Accord aboard the damaged bridge of the UES Defiance. The agreement established humanity as an equal partner in galactic affairs and created the framework for joint human-alien exploration missions. 5 years later, Captain Morrison, now Admiral Morrison, stood on the bridge of the joint human-Cytherian exploration vessel Unity as it prepared to enter uncharted space beyond the galactic rim. His crew was a mixture of humans and aliens who had learned to work together through mutual respect earned in battle. When a reporter asked Admiral Morrison how humanity planned to handle future threats they might encounter in unexplored space, he smiled and gave the answer that became humanity's unofficial motto among the stars. We'll figure it out, we always do. The Defiance, too damaged to be fully repaired, was placed in permanent orbit around Earth as a monument to humanity's first contact with galactic civilization. A plaque at the entrance to the ship's museum read, "They anticipated a war. What they got was one Terran vessel, and that was enough." But perhaps the most important legacy of the Sol engagement was the lesson it taught both humanity and the galactic community. The galaxy had expected to witness the conquest of a primitive species. Instead, they witnessed the birth of humanity's reputation as the species you want as an ally and never want as an enemy. Admiral Zektar, now serving as the Cytherian liaison to the Human-Alien Cooperative Council, often told other species about his first encounter with Captain Morrison. I came to Sol System expecting to find a weak species that would surrender when faced with superior force. Instead, I discovered a species that becomes stronger when challenged, more united when threatened, and more dangerous when cornered. The galaxy is a better place with humans as our allies rather than our enemies. And in the deepest reaches of space, where ancient threats stirred in response to the expanding wave of galactic exploration, other intelligences took note of the species that had turned a planned conquest into the foundation of the greatest alliance in galactic history. Humanity had announced its presence to the universe not with surrender or submission, but with the simple declaration that Earth and its people would never bow to anyone.